Brian von Lossberg, and I'm City Council member for Ward 1.
All right. Now, there was a very important vote that took place at the City Council meeting last night, a topic that's been under debate for quite some time about exotic animals and the circuses and that sort of thing. Can you just give me a little bit of a background as to why that issue was before the City Council and what the vote turned out to be last night?
Sure. I'll start with the last part first. So the vote last night was the second reading of the ordinance, and it was an 8-3 vote. It was very similar to the first reading, which was 8-4. We had one member absent last night, and you're probably familiar, all ordinances go through a 2-reading and 2-vote process. So last night's vote was second reading and the final vote. It came before City Council. I had a group of constituents that contacted me several months ago and brought the issue to my attention regarding animal welfare in circuses and basically traveling performances to my attention. It was nothing that was on my radar, so to speak, up to that point. It's not something I had campaigned on or something. But, I'm willing to sit down with any group of constituents, obviously, and listen to what their concerns and interests are. And so it started from that kind of conversation and then led to me doing a lot of research into the associated issues and how those issues were being dealt with kind of across the country or not dealt with. And this is kind of the Cliff Notes version. And then that led to a draft ordinance and us on council considering that draft ordinance.
Okay, now what specifically does the draft ordinance, what does the ordinance say? How does it read and how does it prohibit this type of activity?
That's a good question, and honestly, I should probably be looking at a copy of it instead of standing on the side of a street talking about it. But in essence, it prohibits the display or exhibition of exotic or wild animals within the city of Missoula, subject to certain exceptions. The main exception I can think of has to do with educational performances, and there's some specific language, and in fact, we looked at that language and revisited it through the course of committee discussions, and there was some feedback that was provided at the public hearing several weeks ago about that. There's an organization, in town that does use wild animals. That it's a rescue operation, and so display of exotic or wild animals with a specific educational component to the mission of the organization is exempted. Rodeos are exempted, and then there's a very specific listing of the animals we're talking about that's in the ordinance, and I couldn't recite it from memory. Certainly animals like elephants and tigers are among the ones that have gotten more discussion as people have, talked about and given feedback about the ordinance.
Okay, so basically it means, I know one of the big things was the Shriners Circus comes to town every year, a big fundraiser. Thousands of people go. And now, will this effectively put an end to that within the city limits?
Oh, I absolutely hope it does not put an end to the Shriners Circus. I think there's two issues that get mixed together, there's the view, and I disagree with it completely, that this is, the end of the Shrine Circus and the end of circuses in general. The Shrine Circus in Los Angeles, for instance, I think has been using wild and exotic animals for 70 or 80 years, and they just moved to an exotic and wild animal-free performance, and this is the Shrine Circus in L.A. Last year, that circus is continuing to go on without those animal acts. There are all kinds of examples of circuses moving to exotic and wild animal-free performances across the country. So I spoke to this at every committee meeting and during the council, during the public hearing and during the first and second reading. I certainly hope, and I think countless people spoke to it, that the hope, and I'm actually quite confident that Shrine Circus can make a change and continue to thrive into the future and actually thrive far in excess of the way that they have operated over the last many years and decades here.